Good afternoon, Mets fans, and welcome to a Wednesday edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and I couldn't bring myself to do this earlier this morning. I was too depressed after last night's loss. It is hump day, however, and speaking of humps, the Mets have got to start getting over the hump in 2017, and the real problem is trying to figure out what are the humps? What is the hump that the Mets have to get over? I've been surmising and blaming it all on the pitching this year, and I don't even know if that's true anymore. Doing a little bit of research on a few things, and I want to talk about it in a little bit. Is it the pitching? Is it the offense? Or is it the defense that's been costing this team so much this year? The Mets are 8 games under 500 and haven't been this far under 500 since September of 2014. And as much as I don't want to believe that 2017 is a lost season like 2014 was, maybe that's just the case. Maybe this year is a lost season. So I don't want to talk about last night's game. I really don't. The offense did not let the Mets down last night. It was the pitching and the defense that let the Mets down last night. And I've been saying that and I don't know if I've said it on Driving with Mr. Mets, but I've been saying that the Mets, if they were pitching the way we all expected them to be pitching, they would be like 10 or 12 games over 500. And so I did a little bit of dirty research, and I looked to see what the team was performing, how the team was performing this year in situations where they were scoring runs and scoring 4 or more runs. Because I think that was the statement. It's always been like, if the Mets can just score 4 runs, or more even, if the Mets can just score 4 runs, they should be in position to win at least 2/3 of every game with the pitching that they have. And I think everyone would have agreed with that at the beginning of the season and heading into this year, but that hasn't really been the case this season. So the research I did was I went through all of the games that the Mets played. And I looked at the runs they've scored. I looked at the runs they've scored in situations where they scored 4 or more runs in a single game. Their record is 23-8. Not 18, sorry. So that's 18 losses where the Mets have scored 4 or more runs in a game. And those 18 losses represent the difference from being 8 games under 500 versus 8 games over 500, or 10 games over. If the Mets are winning these games where they're scoring 4 runs or more, we're not having this sad of a conversation, and this season isn't as sad as it is right now. It's got to be. There's got to be a difference here. You cannot have a 5 game over 5. So 23-18. You can't only be 5 games over 500 in games where you're scoring 4 more runs. And in a lot of those games, the Mets put up like 7, 8 runs, and they still lost. And I mean, that was the case last night. 8 runs, and they still lost. And this is with the guy who's their best pitcher on the mound, and it's his 2nd straight abysmal start for Jacob deGrom. What are we doing? What's going on? And the real question is who the hell saw this coming, and how do we fix it? I don't know that there are answers to any of these questions, which keeps leading me back to, is this a lost season? Now look, a lot of this can change really quickly, and I've been saying that too. I've been kind of negative, and I don't want to be. I'm generally a positive Mets fan, but I've been very negative, and with good reason. The team is playing terrible baseball and not very inspired and not very fun. But give them a 2-week run. Give the Mets a 2-week run where they rattle off 6, 7 wins in a row, or win 3 or 4 consecutive series. Things are different. Really, I mean, things are different, and the tone is different. But until they show that they're going to do that, this is a lost season. And I'm getting closer to being on board with selling at the deadline or in advance of the deadline than I am of buying. Now again, it's June 8th, 6th, or whatever the hell day it is today. June 7th, sorry. It's June 7th. So You know, there's 6 weeks of baseball to play, or 5 weeks until the All-Star break. Then we've got 4 or 5 more weeks of solid baseball before we really start getting into the situation where teams start evaluating trades. So we have time. But again, the pattern so far this season, the roller coaster, up, down, is that there's not going to be any consistent play where the Mets are going to start winning consecutive games and series. It's win a bunch, lose a bunch, win a bunch, lose a bunch. And that's the trademark of a 500 team. I don't think the Mets are a 500 team, but they're playing like a 500 team right now. And that's the bottom line. You know, the Mets are playing like a 500 team. They're 8 games under 500, and hopefully tonight against Yu Darvish, the Mets can get back on the winning side. I don't feel good about it. I don't feel good about it. I do not think that Zach Wheeler matches up very well with this Rangers. Holy crap! Excuse me. This Rangers offense. I think they're going to. I think they're going to be all over his fastball, and I'm envisioning another bunch of crooked numbers for Texas. Anyway, that's all for today. It's been a little bit lengthy, and I'm very upset and whatever. So start winning some games, Mets. You do us all a favor and make us feel a lot better. Thanks for watching. As always, I appreciate you tuning in. If you're not already doing so, please follow me on Twitter at Mr_Met. And for Christ's sakes, let's go Mets.